important is laughter in getting you through the tough times? Because you told me beforehand that you're not considered a funny person, but what? How important is laughter to you generally in life?
I think laughter's great because it's, I mean, often you say to people, oh, I'm going to laugh so I don't cry. I've said that so many times, and so have my friends to
Yeah,
me. Um, but that could sound like it's about bypassing the negativity and sort of covering it up with the laughter. And for me, that's not it's not a good idea to do that. I have sort of repressed some emotions previously, pretended, or compartmentalized them. So I think that like real laughter, belly laughter, the kind of laughter you have with, I would have with the girls maybe on a night out, my, closest best mates who've been there through everything kind of thing, um, is a major way of releasing emotion. It is like having a cathartic cry. Just laughing over really silly slapstick funny things, or I don't know, the kids make me laugh. Sometimes some of their opinions make me laugh, or their opinions of me make me laugh, which is quite funny. Especially when they say things like, oh, mum, you're going all woo woo now. If I talk to them about maybe a bit more about spirituality, or, and they're like, oh, that's too far, mum.
I get that
But
when
yeah,
I get my crystals out. I'm I'm like, oh, here she comes with her mumbo jumbo crystals. Yeah, so I feel your pain on that one.
yeah. So no, so they make me laugh. But they also say that I'm not a very comedic person. I'm not very good at getting jokes. So I understand. It's interesting, isn't it? Um, I've never been quite good at understanding sarcasm or the sort of like dry humor in life. I can understand the obvious sort of slapstick humor, and it's, yeah. I think laughter is really important. I think when I was, in feeling really, really unwell and poorly, my brother and I and my partner went to a comedy club, and I hadn't been out for yonks, absolutely ages, probably like the best part of a year. And it was my birthday, and things had been a really tough time, and I'd been really depressed and down with the illness. And we went to a comedy club, and it was amazingly uplifting. I felt like great emotionally and spiritually, and excited, and just, yeah, it was just nice to laugh. And actually, again, it's that duality, because the juxtaposition of me sat there with a liquid sort of Complan shake, which is a nutritional prescribed drink that you get from the hospital for malnutrition, and they were sat there with their sloppy pizzas and loaded fries and beers. And so like the actual, that in itself, being, and I thought, well, in that moment, I could have cried. I could have sat there and thought, you know what, it's my birthday. I can't eat the food. I can't drink the alcohol. I'm sat here with this bloody shake. But actually, I was in a comedy club having a really fun time. My brother was home from Singapore where he lives. I was with people I love, laughing. And it was great. It was a really good medicine. So sometimes it's about accepting, I think, the duality of joy with suffering, of, laughter and pain. But yeah, I think it's important. I think it's important that we can have that, release all those happy hormones, and share in laughter with others as well.
Yeah, I think you release oxytocin, dopamine, and oh, what's the other one? The endorphins. That's that if when you laugh,
Endorphins.
and especially when you laugh together in a collective at a comedy club. And I think, well, it's something certainly I obviously being a comedian, it's something that I've heavily used to deal or help deal with trauma in a way of laughing at things, eventually is very cathartic. And I find I talk a lot about my childhood and my relationships with people, my mum that isn't very good. And people come up to me after me and they say, that was so healing to know that somebody else is going through the same thing. And that's why, I love laughter and the healing through humor, because you can sort of transmute that pain eventually. The equation is tragedy plus time equals comedy. So obviously you still need to process the emotions of these things, but eventually we can laugh at it. And I think that is really healing. So have you got any favourite comedians that you really enjoy?
Um, Not particularly. What I enjoy, if we're watching something, is more of a when you get like the variety of
All right,
like a late night with, and just listening to like all the different um, sort of like jokes and opinions. I quite like watching women, because there's something empowering about that for me, that historically there hasn't been that many comedian females necessarily on comedian circuits, and over the last, I don't know, I mean, you're more of a specialist than me, but probably a few decades, that's improved, doesn't it? And again, there's something, I don't know, quite wild. So wild well-being, wild spelt WYLDE, is this sort of like old English term for meaning untamed
all
and
right. Yes, I was going to ask you
untethered.
about this. Yeah,
And that's where I quite like that whole kind of like a woman standing up on stage, being outspoken, saying things that societally they shouldn't say, being in a place that they societally, shouldn't be, putting their head above the parapet. And that's what sort of being untethered, untamed, and sort of that kind of freedom from the societal expectation of what women was used to be, traditionally. That's what I like. So whether it's a comedian or a speaker or a lecturer or a presenter or anything, I quite like seeing women in those kind of visible places.
yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah, because I do a lot of all female nights where the audience is mainly all female as well, and yeah, I think wild in that sense is a very good description of untamed, untethered, because as you say, we haven't had that voice and we haven't had that platform previously. So to have a
Mm.
microphone and say what the hell you like is very empowering, and everybody feels very empowered and feels they leave feeling uplifted from it. So yeah, I
Yeah,
love that
absolutely.
definition. I'm going to store that away.